I don't want to take a chance of screwing something up, so I always duplicate my background, or as a rule anyway, I'll duplicate my background. First thing that we'll do is go in and fix this area right here, just some of these dots in here. So let's zoom in, and I'm going to use my clone tool in this case, and I'm not going to use a textured brush so much this time, just because we don't have a really strong texture with it. So I'm going to use probably a little bit of a softer feathered brush, and I'm going to try to find one that's about the size of the area that I want to fix. So I'll get a soft textured brush, and I'm going to drop that down to just barely bigger than the actual size there. I'll come over here, find an area that's similar, select that. I'll push my Option key, click, so that it loads that area as a selection, or as the area I want to duplicate. Let go with my Option key, and now I'll come over here, just kind of go over the top of it. This is about the same size, so I'll come here, push Option, come down here. Now this is a little bit bigger, so I'm going to make this spot a little bit bigger, but I've got a problem because it's right next to that sleeve, and I don't want to take a chance of getting over the top of that sleeve or ruining that. So first I'll get my lasso tool, and I'm going to drag around this area right here, like that. And I might move that just a little bit. There we go, give me a little buffer. Then I'm going to go to Select, Modify, and I'm going to feather this by just maybe a pixel, so that I'll have a soft edge in case I overlap. I won't see any really hard edge. This way though, now I can go in and clone over this and not worry about messing up this area outside of it. So I'll select here, which seems about consistent color-wise. Nope, it's not quite. That's a little too gray. Let's try this area right here. That's a little bit better. I think that'll work. Maybe I'll come here now and grab a little bit more of that. Okay. Deselect, and you can see that I haven't messed up anything there. Let's go into this last little bit right here. Get a little bit smaller brush. Now I can get a small brush to be able to get in close as well. Either of those ways will work. Rather than using the lasso, I might just use that small brush, and I'll come in and clone this area. As a rule though, I try to stay away from using a really small brush, just because what will end up happening is I might see this really small area, or see a bunch of little small lines or something like that as I zoom out. So it's something I want to be careful of. Zoom in here first on this. Now we have this dark area coming down here, so we want to duplicate that. Push Option, come down here, and kind of get that fixed. You've got to get this area right in here. Make sure that that's nice and clean. Come in here. So what I'm going to do, what I usually do in this case, is I'll come in and try to get the shadows taken care of, so that we've got all of the areas in here fixed that have problems as far as that. So we'll kind of come in and get some of those shadows. Then I can come in with the highlights and go ahead and take care of that. And I'll keep sampling periodically. Like right here, I'm going to sample. I'll push Option, click, let go, come down and get that. Come up here, push Option, come down, get that. Now this is sort of midway, so I'll get midway and get that area taken care of. And now I've got kind of this little rise here, so I want to make sure that I get that as well. This area here is simple. I just need to get that dark and duplicate that, and then select these areas, and I'm sometimes going to have to do little incrementally small areas in order to be able to get this the way I want it. And I'll keep sampling some of these areas. Like that. Okay? So I'll come in and clean up this little by little, and I'll just keep sampling different areas periodically. Sample, sample, and then maybe even come in and blur it. Get a smaller blur brush and blur it just a little bit. I can't do it too much though, because you can see that it starts to affect the texture, so I'm going to change my strength down quite a bit and just blur it a little bit there. To get this area here, I'll go back to my clone, and instead of getting this specific area here, which doesn't give me a lot to work from, I may come in right here and try to pull some of this over, which has pretty much the same colors. That's too dark, so I'm just going to come in and grab some of this dark in here and kind of go around. That'll take care of the big chunks, and then I can start to come over here with some of this other area that's already in there to be able to fix it. And like right here to clean up that area. I'll zoom out. Again, that's pretty good. I can still see a little bit of a ridge there, which means that I'm seeing some of that. So I've got to soften that up a little bit. Let's kind of come along in here, get that softer color, and let that go in. And kind of just blend those in a little bit. Let's zoom out and see how we're looking. Yeah, that's looking a little bit better. Probably fix a little bit more. It still seems a little bit harsh there. So maybe I'm going to get a little darker. That can make it. You can hear that paper cutter in the background. That's Patrick getting ready for his class. Now in some cases I don't want to get it too strong, so I might do a little lighter opacity just to lighten it up a little bit in some of these areas. And what that will do is it will just give us a little bit softer blend in there, which that seems to work right now. But be careful, don't do it too much, because what it can do is start to make that area muddy. And so let's darken that up a little bit. There, looks pretty good. And we can continue to go on through this and kind of fix this. Let's talk about fixing this area right here. This is a case where I will probably just grab, this section, copy it and paste it, and then bring that up to about right there. Then I can go ahead and edit, transform, and I'm going to rotate this just a little bit so that those edges line up like that. And now I can go in and just, in this case, with a soft feathered brush, I can go in and just lightly erase the edges of this so that it kind of smooths out right around there and we don't have a really strong line. And so that's an area that would have been really tough to go in and fix, but by copying and pasting it in there I can make that work reasonably well. I may come in and erase a little bit more around there like that, just so that the color blends in a little bit. And then come back over to my layers and I'm going to merge down, so that drops that down into that area again. And then I can come in and of course clone all of this area around here. Oops, let's get 100% cloning. Come in and bring in some of this dark, bring in some of this, like that, a little smaller brush. And bring this around and repair this area right in here. And you can kind of model some of these areas on your own as well. You don't have to, you can create your new folds and things like that, so that they seem a little more realistic. In some cases you have to invent this because you don't know what things look like, because the damage is so bad. Alright, so that looks pretty good right there. We can maybe soften that up just a little bit. Get a little bigger brush and my alarm telling me to go to class pretty soon. So I've got 15 minutes. Alright. Now let's talk about the eyes. This is going to be the tough part. Okay, because you're going to have to go in and kind of start to fake it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just try to make these from scratch. I know that I have an eyebrow here, so I'm going to go to this dark area. And that's too dark, maybe this. And I'm just going to clone a new set of eyebrows. I'm going to grab some of his beard here. Oops, that's too dark, isn't it? I'm going to have to come around here and I'm going to have to find areas that I can clone. And then I know this area here is a lot darker. So I'm going to have to come in this. I'm kind of dark in this, and this is where that drawing comes into account. And if you're a photographer, you know, and you've got to do stuff like this, sadly, you do need to have a little bit of drawing ability to be able to know where this stuff comes into play. And so we'll come in, and here's his eyeball right around here. And we'll make a little pupil right there. That's a little dark. Hello, bonk. Maybe that's too dark. I'll get one a little bit lighter here, perhaps. That's a little bit better. And then we've got to come in here with some areas where there's some light coming in. So we're going to paint and draw a little bit in here. Now you can do that. You can also come in and paint. Get a small brush and get a low opacity. In fact, I would say about 15. You're going to sample some color and you'll come in and you're going to start painting. Get a smaller brush like that, and then we're going to get some dark, and we're going to come in here and paint some of this area so it darkens up. See, because we've got to be able to create this line or this area from scratch here a little bit, because we just don't have enough information. So we're going to darken up this area here. And some of you are saying, well, I'm not a good enough drawer to do that. If that's the case, then be very selective about the color, or about the images that you're working from. So far that's working out pretty well. We've got this little bit of a scratch here still. So I'm going to darken that up and paint that in just a little bit more right there. And now I can come in here and clone this right above his nose. We've got a little bit of a highlight. You can clone this part to the side of his head and his hair, which would be fairly easy. Notice I'm taking samples from lots of different places. At the side of his cheek here, or side of his forehead here. Let's zoom out and see what we're getting. Alright, so we've drawn a little bit of an eye. So this is what it was before. This is what it is afterwards. The last thing is probably this area right here. I'm going to use my burn tool, and I'm going to burn my midtones a little bit to make it a little darker, and then also my highlights, because all that gray in there becomes a highlight. You can come in here. And it's not going to get it completely black, but it's okay because it's an old photo. It's all right to have that. Oops. It's all right to have that sort of texture in it because it's an old photo. We expect it to be that way, but you just want to kind of clean it up a little bit. Clean it up through here, darken some of these areas in here, perhaps. And again, get a really low exposure in order to be able to do that. Okay? Hopefully that's helpful.